Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
I've been going out with a girl, her name is Julie, but last night she said to me when we were watching telly.
Dave has called from Saltash. Hi, Dave.
Hi. Some elements of your previous caller's points I think I kind of understood and agree with. And it's the point I was going to suggest was that it's the constant whining of the liberal people like yourself who seem to assume that racism is a colour issue or a cultural or a group issue. It is doing nothing to resolve the problem, but doing everything to perpetuate it. If you dislike somebody for their personality, but they happen to be from a particular cultural or ethnic group, it's the likes of your constant liberal whining that labels that as racism rather than simply disliking them as a person.
Why are you describing the conversations I have, this one and others, about race? Why are you describing it as liberal whining? I'm just having the same kind of conversation I have every day on air.
I think you've answered your own question.
No, I really haven't. I'd like you to. I'd like you to tell me why you regard me as whining rather than me having conversations.
What are you doing to constructively sort of resolve the problem? If we continually highlight what, in your phraseology, racial prejudices, then all we do is create groups that feel either hard done by or disadvantaged in some respect, but actually they're identifying with a group rather than identifying with personal or group deficiencies that make them cohesive with the current society. Now, I'm sure you would not have a problem with a child or a family member of yours going to a school where 40 languages are spoken. Personally, I'd rather cut my head off than have that inflicted upon me.
Well, it depends entirely how that situation is managed. It's not. No, it
doesn't. It doesn't.
Well, it does, but anyway.
It does not entirely depend upon how the situation is managed. Massive amounts of resources from the education budget are diverted to non-English speaking elements.
Have you ever been in a school where that's the case, Dave?
I was in a long-term relationship with a teacher who was her specialisation was non-English speaking children in central London.
But have you ever been in a school where this is the case?
I wouldn't wish to.
Well, I have, you see, as a reporter on a number of occasions. I went to different schools around the country for all kinds of reasons, and I came across this issue and how it was being handled. And how it's handled, like any situation in a school, matters enormously. If it's handled effectively and well, it not only makes no odds to the school in terms of performance standards, it enriches a school. If it's handled badly, it's problematic.
That's your view.
No, it's not my view. It's my lived experience, Dave. You're talking about someone you used to go out with. You're talking about someone you used to go out with. I'm telling you about schools I've been in and people I've spoken to and systems I've seen. It's not just my view.
The reason I use that example is because she was living that life on a day-to-day basis and recalling it, you know, in our time together. So it's a fairly close understanding of the situation.
Well, it was maybe she was in a school where it was ineffectively managed. I'm talking about schools, one in particular in Leeds, where it was very well managed.
Okay. But the question then must be, why have we even allowed this circumstance to arise? How can it be to our benefit?
Well, I've told you how I think it can be to people's benefit. If there is a mixed group of people and it's managed well, it can absolutely be to our benefit. Do you only know people like you, Dave?
What do you mean by that?
What I'm saying is, if you know people who aren't like yourself or from the same background as yourself, that can be a very enriching experience, can't it?
I've travelled extensively, worked, lived and loved all around the world, engaged with a great deal of cultures. I have a great deal of respect for all of them.
But you want to leave them where they are?
In their own place.
All right, Dave. I think you've made it very clear. Thank you, Dave in Saltash. George in Hornchurch, hello.
Hello.
You're a racist.
Just to saying to you lady that I'm a racist. I don't like blacks, I don't like Asians, not because of their colour, but because of the way they behave, their manner, their demeanour, and what they do.
How do they behave? And do they behave differently to each other or just differently to you?
Well, they've got their ways. Asians are very arrogant. Black people are very troublesome, infantile, lazy. I could go on, like, you know. I've just spent 5 months in hospital for the first time in my life, and I had it all illustrated around me all the time. Most of the nurses there were black. They were lazy, incompetent, negligent, and nasty. They were all carried by the white nurses all the time. No one's got the bottle to say anything about it.
George, can I ask you, when you say all black people are this, all Asian people...
Not all of them. There's some...
Oh, no, but you began by saying all. You said black people are lazy, Asian people are arrogant.
Well, I'm speaking most generally. Of course, there's the exceptions.
There's a danger in speaking most generally, because I know some very lazy, annoying, unimpressive white people, but I don't conclude that white people are lazy, unimpressive and annoying.
Yeah, but when your experience en masse of them is always the same.
En masse in Hornchurch?
Yeah. I've just told you, I've just said it illustrates to me only too well the 5 months I spent in 3 different hospitals, and it was always the same. I got some appalling stories of black people that you wouldn't allow me to tell you.
Well, it's not that I wouldn't allow you to tell me them. I think we've heard very clearly your position on black people, your position on Asian people, George. And to be honest, the only reason I let George speak as freely as he did, in the way that he did, was I think it's important that we hear racism. We need to hear what it sounds like, I think. And I'm so sorry if anybody was listening to that and was deeply offended. He may have had some terrible nurses, but they're terrible nurses. They're not just black nurses. But wow, quite something. Rob has called from Binley in Coventry on this. Is this a decent compromise, Rob, or would you expect more?
I would expect more. I mean, I can't see what all the fuss is about. I mean, you look at all the past ones that have come in with all the controversy surrounding them. You've had King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia, 2007, Robert Mugabe. That man was renowned for killing white farmers, the interest rate, the people are starving in his country. You've had Vladimir Putin, old Putin. He's come on over on a state visit. Look at the controversy surrounding him. So, what's the big deal?
That's what makes me think it's coming from Washington, not London.
I don't think it is. I think there's too many do-gooders, left-wingers, the Labours of this world are all kicking off about this big businessman from America who just happened to be right place, right time to become president of the United States of America, our biggest ally, our biggest partner in the world. And, where was all the kicking off? Saudi Arabia, look how many people, look at the people they put underfoot. Robert Mugabe, like I said, biggest tyrant of this planet. I'm surprised they don't give old Mr. North Korea a state visit.
I mean, one of the biggest tyrants of the planet, I would say.
Yeah, one of the biggest tyrants.
Well, but it's just a fact, isn't it? There's quite a few to choose from, sadly. I agree with you that I think it should be a state visit, but we probably think that for different reasons. But I'm still not convinced that the people you say are responsible for it being downgraded are the people responsible for it being downgraded, or we're calling it downgraded, presented differently. What makes you think it's them? What makes you think protesters have the power to do this?
Because the world has changed. You look at all the protests and stuff, and the freedom of speech in this country, for starters alone, I don't think there is freedom of speech anymore. If I stood up on the box in Hyde Park in Speaker's Corner and started ranting on about where's the rights for white people, where's the rights for whatever, I'll be labelled as a racist.
What rights haven't you got, Rob? Are you white to start with?
I'm white, but
Yeah.
I've got no freedom of speech. Anyone, it's total it's like a reversed apartheid.
You've just called a national radio station to tell me your opinion. It doesn't really get much freer than that. Nobody's going to come around and arrest you.
I totally agree. I mean, yeah, I can say that over a radio station. I can go on telly interviews. I can be interviewed by a reporter in the street. I'm not going to get dragged up and put in jail. So that just makes me think there's something behind the scenes, obviously, that we can't see. We're not privy to. That's going on. But again, I hark back to my point about.
Sorry, do you mean in relation to Donald Trump, or do you mean in relation to everything?
In relation to everything.
What might that something be?
You know what? If I could do that, I'd be a millionaire. Put my finger on all the things that might be going on behind the scenes. But it just there's something that I really can't put my finger on, and I really don't see what all the fuss is about.
Is it possible that you can't put your finger on it because it's not there? That you actually do live in a free society where you can speak and say what you want to say? Because I know I live in a free society where I can say what I want to say. So which one do you live in?
Well, I live in a society where I can say whatever I like.
You've just told me you couldn't.
I will be, but I will be labelled. If I said anything controversial at work, I have a good chance of being sacked.
What kind of things would be controversial in your workplace?
Well, if I turn around and complained about another employee who was of a different race or colour, I would instantly be labelled as a racist and probably taken down a conduct line. But in the reverse effect, and it's happened, someone said something about me who's a different race, they don't get nothing done to them.
Have you seen this happen, or is it like the imaginary problems you can't see in the background?
I've seen it happen. I know plenty of instances where the so-called usual racist, the racial card is played. He's picking on me because I'm whatever, and nothing gets done.
And what was the problem? That was somebody underperforming? Was somebody misbehaving towards you? What was the problem that this person?
Well, there's loads. We call them deadwoods, and they get nothing done, and they just happen to be of a different colour or a different race, and nothing gets said to them because they're scared to the bone of doing anything against them.
And you link this to Donald Trump's state visit, how? That you think there's some conspiracy to silence people like you?
I have. Well, I've always been told that I'm sometimes, you're a conspiracy theory and all this theorist, and I'm like, but again, if you're complaining about Mr. Trump being allowed into the country on a state visit, you need to stop all these Robert Mugabes coming in again.
Okay, Rob, thank you. Rob in Binley, thanks for your calls. James in Romford. Should he come?
Yes, he should most definitely come. I think the problem, I totally agree with the African fellow then.
Joseph?
Yes, Joseph. What it is, it's basically a concerted effort by the left, majority of the left, using cultural Marxist techniques to silence people, to no-platform people. What they're doing in universities all across America and in this country is basically anyone that they disagree with, what they'll do, they'll turn up, protest to a point where it gets violent. Then the people running the event will do you know what? Shut it down, it's dangerous. And then what happens is the event person gets no platform, so therefore they don't get heard. So they're shutting down speech. Now, this is such a very important thing because you can see it all over the Western world at the moment, where people's views
won't be heard.
They don't want to debate people. They don't want to debate. They want to shut you down. Everybody's a Nazi or everybody's this.
Yeah, I know. I think you're right. And I mean, it's a tone I don't foster on this programme. I definitely want your views, even if your views are completely abhorrent to me. I invite you to call and I invite you to share your views. And I think you raise an important point, James. I mean, you attach it to Donald Trump's visit in this case, but I think you make an important point more generally as well. Thank you for your call. We're talking about the scale of white nationalism, white supremacy, we hear it called in the United States, less so here. Similar traits, obviously. Jeff has called from Guildford in Surrey. Jeff, you regard yourself as a nationalist, but not a white nationalist, not racist.
Well, no, the difference there I just wanted to point out is that I am a white nationalist, so I do believe in those things, but there is actually a large difference. I actually have no problem at all with people from, like, Asia or Africa or anywhere like that, and people that have then moved to this country and are also, black British or Asian British. I have no problem at all. And I just don't like the way we are constantly put into the bracket of white supremacy. There are elements of people in any kind of political group that have those kind of like loathsome ideas, and just think on a, like you said before, knuckle-dragging idea that the colour of their skin makes them better than someone else. But that's not actually the core of our movement.
Sorry, but do you describe yourself as a white nationalist because you happen to be white and a nationalist, or is there something in the title white nationalism that is akin to having a view on the colour of people's skin?
Again, it's just a strange one because it's a nationalism where we get branded as being white, but that just happens to be that Britain is originally a white country, so we have that term put on us. So, for example, somebody who's proud to be Chinese or is a Chinese nationalist, we don't stick to them the same kind of tag as being like racist to other people, but they're more than.
Well, when you say Britain is originally a white country, I mean, where are you going to go back to? Pre-slavery, presumably.
Pre-slavery in what sense? Sorry.
Well, you're talking about this being a white country. What does that mean? There were no black or brown people here? Because actually, I think you'll find.
I think where I'm coming from is basically England is a white country, or has its foundation in being white, as much as Zimbabwe has its foundation in being a black country.
Yeah, but do you understand what I'm? But I'm just trying to get. I'm glad you've called. I really am genuinely glad you've called, Jeff, because I'm trying to get a sense of what it means to people out there when they hear the terms nationalist and white nationalist. But I still think that everything you've said so far suggests to me that whiteness is key to Britishness.
Well, there's a split. I mean, if you really want to know, there is actually a split in our movement per se. So you do have a group of people that describe themselves as ethnic state nationalists. These are people that do genuinely believe that multiculturalism or multi-ethnic society is not working for them. And they actually would like to see the country return to what they would consider, not me personally, but that section do consider that a country should return to being an ethnically white country.
So the KKK.
Again, it's a strange one because although they may want to see Britain return to being ethnically white, they don't wish any ill harm on any other race or peoples around the world. Some of the key beliefs of the National Socialist Movement. Sorry, I'm trying to just get all this out in one go.
That's all right. Take your time. I'm not rushing you.
A lot of us believe that every race around the world is entitled to thrive and achieve excellence in its own way, as long as it's not at the detriment of any other. And so a lot of this is stemming from...
But you believe, do you, that black and brown people, for the many centuries that they've been here, have slowly but surely eroded the rights of white people?
It's potentially, in this modern area of identity politics that we have moved into... I'm not
asking about identity politics. I'm asking you what you think about those black and brown people, those foreign people, even if they're not black and brown, those foreign people who over the centuries have come here. Do you think they have benefited at your expense?
No, I don't know.
Well...
No, I don't think that. I feel like there's a massive... there's a lot of feeling in our movement that our own identity is not being listened to, and our own identity is being discriminated against at the benefit of other groups. And
so you do think that then? You do think that those people are somehow taking a chunk of your identity away by having their own?
Yes, they are. In a way. So as much as someone can describe themselves as like a proud black British person, that's fine, and their voice is heard, and they're encouraged to be proud of their ethnic ancestry, i.e. from like Caribbean or Africa, and also be proudly British. It's different for someone white to stand up and say that I'm proud to be a white British person, I'm proud of this country. We often get labelled with a highly racist. We get accused of being racist and told that we're white supremacists and, like you've described, terrible and socially inadequate and whatnot. So.
But don't you think there's a slight difference if you are the descendants, say, for the sake of argument, of a slave, who was brought to, I don't know, to Liverpool, and that it's merchant height, and then three generations.
Those were brought to Liverpool in its merchant height.
Well, you should see the Museum of Slavery in Liverpool then before you come to that conclusion. But if you are a descendant of that man or woman, why not be proud of their experience and the fact that they survived it and you went on to become something else in this new Britain that is not like that? Why not be proud of that? And there's nothing wrong with being proud of that, any more than there's anything wrong with you being proud of being British. I'm just curious why you would add the colour of your skin, because in the black person's experience, I think it's significant, actually.
Well,
more so than being white, because of the advantage that goes with being white.
Well, again, one of the reasons why our movement is growing and stuff like that is exactly what you just said.
Because you think there's a disadvantage in being white now, do you?
Well, it's becoming that way, but I don't really see there being an advantage or disadvantage in anything. I've met poor white people, poor black people in my daily life.
So why do you insist on using your colour then in your description of yourself, if you see what I mean, in your political description of yourself?
Well, again, it's basically a white nationalist is, by being a British nationalist, people are going to assume that I'm a white supremacist anyway. So as part of that, we do just say we are white nationalists. I know it sounds weird, but it's also part of our movement. It's like I said, it's very loosely connected. Obviously, it's kept very underground. People don't really like talking about it, etc. It's all done on the internet.
Well, I think we should talk about it more, because
I would like to,
well, good. I'm glad you have, and you haven't done enough yet for my tastes.
Well,
you haven't done enough yet to convince me that you are not racist.
No, that's fine. And again, I'm not. I can understand that. Well, like I said,
I'd love you to be able to do that, but can you?
I'm saying out now to all your listeners out there, no matter what colour you are, I don't dislike you based on the colour of your skin. If you stand next to me and are as proud as British values and as proud of our history and as proud of going forward together as I am, then you're as British as I am. It's more of a cultural issue. There could be white people in this country that seem to not integrate very well, and culturally, don't want to integrate into this country. And I have,
So your colleagues,
with that person than I would a black person who's really proud of being British.
Right. So a European immigrant, for example.
Yeah, but there are elements in my movement that, like you said before, are knuckle dragging and are white supremacists. I'm not going to deny they don't exist, but.
Do you ever argue with them about it and just say, guys, if we're going to be heard, you're going to have to stop being a Neanderthal racist?
Yeah, that's a constant. That is a constant. Just like, for example, absolutely. There's a massive, constant internal debate going on between people that would identify with that kind of movement happening all over the internet. Civic nationalists versus ethnic nationalists.
How often do you meet people, who may be much further down the line you've just described than you are? Who you think are capable of violence or of a terrorist nature, like wanting to kill an MP or wanting to kill somebody because of their views?
Opinion, I don't even think the current charges that the people from National Action are up on, I don't even think they're very legitimate. I'm not part of that group.
Well, it's not. But that's still it's a live case. So let's leave that. But what do you? So typically, it's a peaceful group, is it?
Well, I think the difference from white nationalist groups like National Action, who stand on the side of the street, going on about lost identity and whatnot, and holding up signs and all the rest of it, that's a long way away from people that are going on to trains and blowing themselves up. So to put us in the same book as, for example, organised Islamist movement that's global. Well, Islamism isn't always violent. It's that's why we put the word violent in front of it if it is. So there's an equation to be made. But you're right to make the distinction between violent groups and non-violent groups. Jeff, interesting call. Thank you for calling, Jeff in Guildford. We'll hear from Guy in Dulwich in a moment, and lots of your texts and tweets coming in too. So we'll have more of those on the question of white nationalism or nationalism in this country. Do we talk about it? Do we talk about it enough? Is Jeff right? I think Jeff is right that we need to talk about it more routinely than we do. And as long as everyone stays within the law, basic rule. And what do you hear around you? What types of nationalism do you hear around you? Joshua has called from Bolton in Greater Manchester. Hi, Joshua.
Oh, hello there.
You used to be, a white supremacist, or you certainly believed in white supremacy.
Well, personally, what it was with myself, I actually believed in, like you just said, like white nationalists, but going back to what I just spoke to somebody on the phone too. What I personally believe, I've been brought up in an area which is well, it's multicultural. You've got Asians, you've got people from all different ends of the world, and it seems to me in areas like that you get a lot of riff-raff between each other. But the thing is, when you're in pubs or in social places and stuff like that, there's a lot of racism within that, and it's easy to get drawn into it, especially being brought up in such an area like this.
And is it in multiple directions, the racism?
Well, it can be, but it's just racism fuels racism. It's just a never-ending spiral, really. But the thing is, it causes you from such a young age to be drawn into it. Like I said, is that you don't really think for yourself. You just think through what other people have told you and stuff like that.
So when you were, did you grow up in Bolton?
Yes, I've grown up in Bolton.
So when you were growing up, did you just hear and see strong white messages about who you were and what mattered and who mattered most?
Yeah, sure, exactly. That's what it was. It's like just stuff what you've probably heard before, like this is our country and stuff like this, what they're doing in our country, taking our jobs.
And did you get a sense of confidence from hearing that? Is that why you attached yourself to it?
Yeah, sure. I joined in with it myself. It was just the normal thing of growing up, especially in an area like Bolton. You'll find a lot of it. But the thing is, what I tend to have done, as I've got older, I'm 25 now, from being about the age of 18, when you start to think about things for yourself and stuff like that. What I noticed is when, especially with the immigrants at Calais and stuff like that, you start to think, why are all these people trying to come to the country? What they're running from? I think that we've got more in common personally with the people. This is me thinking now, sorry, not about how I was back then, but I think we've got a lot more in common with the people who are fleeing them countries than we have than the people sending people to war with them countries and stuff like that, you see.
Yeah.
And I know it seems very hippie-ish, and it'd be impossible not to say anything that sounds a bit hippie-ish.
I don't think it sounds hippie-ish.
But what I've drawn to the conclusion of nowadays is that it's not our country. It's everybody's. We're all born on the green earth, and we're all born underneath one blue sky. And at the end of the day, the way I see life now is that it's everyone's. I personally like living in a multicultural society. I've worked with people from Poland and stuff like that, or even people from Pakistan and stuff like that. And I generally like multicultural society.
Can I ask you, Joshua? Sorry. Can you? No, don't say sorry. It's really interesting talking to you. Can you pinpoint a time when you thought, I really have to shed this skin of racism or this skin of feeling like I'm superior? I really have to just let that go because that's nonsense. What was it? Was it a gradual process for you?
Well, no, what it was there's a stigma attached to talking to other people from other backgrounds, from other countries, and from different coloured skin, and you kind of feel. Like personally, I know a lot of the people are on the same end of the stick, but you feel not so much awkward talking to them, but you feel like, oh, we've got nothing in common, we're completely different people. But then if you put that to the side and you don't even contemplate that in your mind, everyone's just the same. Everyone's thinking the same. Everyone's got the same problems. No matter if you're white, black, Chinese, it doesn't matter. Everybody is the same, and that's the conclusion.
And every group of people has its idiots as well. You know, every population has its idiots. Every population has its violent people as well. Joshua, I'm glad you, quotes, saw the light. Thank you, Joshua, calling from Bolton. Thank you to Jeff and to Joshua, and to Guy who's called already, for responding to the exact question that I asked, because this wasn't just about me finding out what you think of white nationalism. It's about hearing about it, hearing from people who are either in it or have been on the receiving end of it. David has called from Northampton and Louis in Orpington to carry on our conversation about white nationalism and what exactly it is. David, hello.
Hello, yes, thank you for having me on. I look in the mirror, I wake up in the morning, and I'm white, and I'm also British, and I'm really proud of that. I'm a really proud white British male, and I love who I am. And I love the people that look like me and that are the same citizenship as me. But that does not mean that I hate people that are a different nationality or ethnicity to me. I don't think you can automatically conflate the two.
No, I think you're right. Why are you Why are you glad you're white, particularly?
Well, I think that look at the achievement and the contributions we've made, the unique contributions to the world. I'm really proud of the benefits that the British Empire brought and the achievements we've shared. I believe in civic nationalism, so I believe that we have an opportunity to reinvigorate the benefits of the empire by sharing and coaching less able and less fair and less equal cultures and peoples to share the benefits that we have. Because after all, people are coming to white countries, aren't they? They're coming to Western Europe, they're coming to America. They're not rushing to go to Congo, they're not rushing to go to Pakistan, are they? That's not a coincidence, surely.
Ooh, well, you sound to me like you think white means best.
Well, that's called critique by association. So you're associating a position. I haven't said that.
No, I know you haven't said it. I'm saying it based on what you've just said to me. Because as you were talking about the empire and our great achievements, and there were huge achievements in the British Empire, there were huge problems as well, it seems to me, in the British Empire. But just put those to one side for the sake of this argument. Of course, there were huge achievements, and of course, we've had a history of fantastic achievements. But as you were talking about the white man's achievements, I just scribbled down Islam, science, maths, astrology, Florence. Think of the Renaissance, business, art, politics, religion. You look at Black history as well. You know that white people aren't uniquely talented, don't you?
Oh, no, yes. I mean, I think you take MasterChef. You've got good cooks and bad cooks. It's about how you use the ingredients. Let's look at Australia. I mean, you look at the fantastic Sydney Opera House. I mean, that didn't exist before British people went there, did they? And you take America. What did the native
Have you seen it close up, David? It's absolutely hideous.
Is it? Oh,
it looks like an expanded outside toilet.
What about all the roads, the infrastructure, the education? I mean, look what we did for India. Fantastic gift we gave.
Yeah, the Romans taught us. The Romans taught us an awful lot about roads, didn't they?
They did, yes, and they built them. And who didn't build them? I mean, Africa didn't build the infrastructure until we arrived. I'm really proud of our unique contribution with the empire. And I think we could have ambassadors. British ambassadors who could go back to the lands of their heritage optionally and impart their knowledge that they've learned here. It would be a great gift.
Do you, when you talk about what we did for Africa and what Africa didn't do for itself, how far back in history do you go before you decide that English white people, British white people, were the most amazing? Because that, if for example, when those Romans were building those roads and running that empire, Britain wasn't much, was it?
Well, I think we're certainly. Well, I mean, obviously, you can take
yours and my ancestors in the British Isles and Ireland were not living. I mean,
and yet, Sheila, we managed to run, a quarter of the world and implement a global trade.
I don't doubt it, but I'm talking about. You and I are talking here about the ebb and flow of history, but in that ebb and flow of history, I think you need to look at a big chunk of the ebb and flow of history. And surely you must conclude that there is no superior white man, or can't you yet conclude that?
I can conclude that we've made a unique contribution to civilization.
No, but do you believe that white men and women are superior?
I don't believe that by my nature of my race that I'm inherently superior to someone else, but I recognise the superior opportunity and gift that my race has provided to the world in cooperation with.
But do you recognise the opportunities and gifts that other parts of the world have offered to you?
Yes, I do, as you referenced. But we take something like the Moors, who enslaved white people for centuries, and you don't really hear about that before, during, and after slavery. And we've made steps to make things better for people.
The Moors who wrote beautiful literature, built beautiful buildings in Morocco, in Spain. I mean, we can look at all kinds of aspects of life. Look have you been watching Gunpowder? Look what white people in Britain did to each other. In that era, I mean, you're picking and choosing which bits of history reflect well on white British people. For every one you say is a glorious moment, I could show you an inglorious, you know what.
I know he's a Moor.